Hello and welcome back to our Diablo 3 gameplay series. This is Fenris the Wolf, and this is part 4 of the Witch Doctor class. In this video we'll be finishing up the traveling through Cathedral to rescue Deckard Cain from the clutches of the minions of the Skeleton King. We'll also be picking up the new ability called Plague of Toads, which is a very useful close combat ability that unleashes basically a swath of toads that explode upon contact with enemies. It's most effective at close range, but you can also unleash horde after horde, essentially spamming the ability in order to prevent enemies from getting too close to you. One thing that is very important to remember when you're playing the Witch Doctor class is that it is not a tank class and is not designed to be in continuous close combat with heavy-hitting enemies. That's the #1 way to get yourself killed. That's why the class has so many pets and so forth that you can use to tank enemies away from you, or to put some distance between you and those enemies, such as roots, stuns, and so forth. One of the other things about the class is it does excel at putting dots and essentially stacking effects on enemies, so you can, root an enemy or keep him tied up with your pets, and then you can drill him with your long-range high-damage abilities. As you continue to progress in leveling up this class, you're going to get more and more abilities that you can use to strike the enemy from long range and can put out some significant damage without putting yourself at risk. I'd like to take a moment to point out something you probably just saw right before we came up those stairs, was that there was a wall that was damaged and was propped up by some boards. Whenever you see that type of situation, it's a great opportunity to use the environment to take out your enemies, and doing that is actually an achievement, so you want to look out for that and do that whenever you can in order to pick up those environmental kill achievements. Another thing that if you've been paying attention when we've been going through these different videos is once you have your pets on an enemy, it generally keeps them in place fighting your pets, and then you can use abilities such as your corpse spiders or your plague of toads, which we're actually just going to pick up here at level 5, and to essentially drill that enemy while they're being kept in place. Later, as you continue to level up, you'll actually be able to use both your Plague of Toads and your Corpse Spiders at the same time, and you'll also be leveling up the Corpse Spiders with some additional abilities. You'll see that in some of the later videos. Another thing that you always need to be aware of when you're swapping out your abilities is, in most cases, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here with the toad, it actually has a period of time before it can be used in which it has to recharge. So when you're swapping out your abilities, don't do it in the middle of a combat situation, because it could leave you without an essential ability for whatever the recharge time it takes before it becomes usable. Another important reminder about the Witch Doctor class, in particular in this Plague of Toads ability, is that it can be LOS'd by the environment, so you do need to be aware of the position between you and the enemies when you are casting this ability. It goes out in essentially a conal pattern in front of you, and you're going to see right here as I go down this staircase, I start casting this. Normally you can unleash a whole bunch of toads, but they're hitting the wall and exploding instead of damaging the enemy. So that's just something to be aware of, your positioning, And that's the same with a lot of different class abilities. Each one is going to have essentially its area of effect that you need to pay attention to when you're casting it, so that you're not wasting it, because whether or not it hits the enemy, you still use the mana. Fortunately, Plague of Toads does not use that much mana. Now you're seeing here more effective use of it. It's just wherever you're facing, and it comes out in a frontal arc, and they just kind of move back and forth in that arc pattern, and as soon as they come in contact with something, they explode and deliver their damage. These toads can also be upgraded as well to inflict more damage and so forth as your character levels up. So the ability to use the runes in upgrading your abilities or to customize them to your own individual playstyle is really a great feature that I really like with Diablo 3. So you can essentially take one ability and you can customize it to be used in a very specific way that works good with how you want to play the game. Thus far, I have to say, from playing the Witch Doctor class, that it looks like the class is going to scale pretty well. As you're leveling up, you're getting more and more abilities that they're appropriate for the environments you're facing. You see with some games that when you're playing through these particular classes, you'll kind of hit a plateau, and it's like you're not really getting any new useful abilities. But with the Witch Doctor, I have to say, it feels like you're getting something new every so often. You have a lot of different choices as far as the abilities you're going to use and the way you're going to use them. Just in leveling up to level 13 in the beta, you have a whole host of different abilities that you can use, and when you put it into elective mode, which is that's a thing available from the options screen, it actually allows you to customize your toolbar, and so you don't have to put just one of this kind of ability and one of that kind of ability on your toolbar. You can really decide how you want to do it. So if you want to have multiple, summoning type abilities, or decay abilities, or whatever, you can do that. As you see, we just hit a checkpoint here, and now we are about to encounter Deckard Cain trying to escape from the Skeleton King's minions. This is a little story sequence here. You temporarily lose control of your character, and you're going to regain control in just a moment, and then you're going to have to rescue Deckard Cain from the summoned minions and an elite. And now it's time to go save Deckard. He's an NPC. I've never tried standing around to see what happens, but I assume that would be very bad if you did. So you're going to run down here, engage the minions of the Skeleton King, and you're also going to have an elite that shows up here in just a moment that you're going to have to deal with. This is an example right here of what's called a knockback enemy. They typically have a gold aura, and they have the annoying ability to, as I just said, knock you back. So if they get into physical contact range, they can actually knock your character back, interrupting your abilities, and typically inflict a decent amount of damage. So with your pets on him, not really a big deal, but as you'll see in some later videos, you're going to encounter some enemies with the knockback ability that are particularly dangerous. So just always be aware when you're encountering new types of enemies to, take some baby steps. Once you see what type of abilities they have, then you can engage them much quicker. As you just saw there, there's a large gate that is an entrance to some of the deeper levels of Cathedral. You can't get in there right now, so we're going to have to escort Deckard Cain back to town, and then you can continue the storyline to obtain the appropriate item you're going to need to actually get through that door. Now that this particular door is open, you will be able to use
We
this
must
passage to
discuss
get
the
back
fallen
and bypass
star.
that
Follow
first section
me,
of Cathedral
Tristram.
when it's time for you to return and go through that door. You'll see here we are now in the garden to the side of the cathedral, and that gate is open, so you are free to pass in and out. And we also have a waypoint here that you're going to be able to use to fast travel back to this location later in the game. And that brings part 4 of the Witch Doctor gameplay to an end. In part 5 we're going to be continuing to the cemetery and the defiled crypt to recover the crown of the Skeleton King. Also, all of our continuing videos are now going to be in HD, so you can look forward to that next time.